Families have sat through 200 hours of evidence from 120 witnesses at Toronto court. No real answers have emerged as to how or who more than likely murdered Leanne Goodall, Amanda Robinson and Robin Hickey in the late 1970s.
We still hope for a miracle. Someone might come forward. We just have to cling on to that hope.
But their anguished parents believe the inquest has successfully investigated 7 key suspects, including backpacker killer Ivan Milat. State Coroner John Abernathy today put off handing down his findings for 4 months in light of fresh clues.
We'll be revisiting and adding further investigators to the strike force for further inquiries that arises from information at these proceedings.
But exactly which person of interest or piece of evidence that needs to be re-examined is for now being kept secret. But there will be more police searches.
We just need to bury him with dignity. We just need to know.
The University of Newcastle Legal Centre will be working on this case as it has done for the last 7 years. We'll be continuing to work on the case.
Parents are supporting the inquest extension. Meantime, the sister of Leanne Goodall wanted to share this message.
Anyone that hitchhikes or young people that roam the streets at night are crazy. They're idiots, and they should, make sure that they're with someone. Make sure they tell someone where they're going, because it's so important to let people know where you are.
For the first time ever, Novocastrians are making a choice between 2 different shows. There's the Newcastle show at Broadmeadow and the new Showman's Guild Super Show at Spears Point.
Absolutely fantastic. The crowd has rolled in at 9 o'clock. It's really taken off well.
Crowds rolled into both venues this morning, organisers happy with their respective first days.
A lot of people keep talking about the show at Spears Point, but that's just a sideshow. There's only one Newcastle show that's an integrated show, and we've just focused on that all the way.
But the real success of both shows will depend on the public. Moments like these, shared with young animals, are a traditional draw card for the Newcastle show.
We wanted to come to the real show. We weren't going to go to the show if it was only for the rides.
But it wasn't proving the adrenaline rush some teenagers had hoped for.
We're keen to go to Spears Point right now, we're thinking about catching a bus.
We're shooting on Spears Point.
Over at Spears Point, a cool breeze off the lake kept the temperature down. The level of fun, however, could have been registered on the Richter scale.
It's not all claustrophobic, I find. It's more open space, more trees. It's more relaxing, more of a family venue, I think.
Closer to home, the old shows that cost us too much money. We've got 4 kids.
Both shows will run through to Sunday night. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
The latest strategy to curb drug-related stealing was unveiled by Special Minister of State John Della Bosca. Merit, the Magistrate's early referral to treatment program, allows petty criminals with an illicit drug problem to voluntarily get help with their addiction whilst charges are before the local court. The Minister says it's no soft option.
We're requiring them to give up drugs. We're requiring them to seek treatment. That's a hard option for them, but it's a better option for them. It's a better option for society as well.
Hunter Health has based the Merit program at James Fletcher Hospital and offers a range of treatment from detoxification to residential rehabilitation. Newcastle is the 5th area in the state to benefit from the initiative, and positive results are expected.
And so far, every one of them has worked, I'm sure, with the support the Hunter Police Services, Hunter Health and the Hunter community will give it. It'll be a rip-roaring success.
In the 3 weeks Merit has operated at Newcastle Courthouse, 17 people have been referred to the program, with 8 accepted. The program will be expanded to Cessnock next month and later in the year to the Upper Hunter. Gary Blair, NBN News.
got the idea early this was going to be a tough night out for both sides, as defence quickly became the key. Playing only his second run on game for Newcastle, Michael Prentice was filling in well for the suspended Andy Roberts. The best chance of the opening 45 came from a defender in Scott Bailey. Middleby was finding room on the right, but no one could crack South Melbourne's defence. After half-time, it was Newcastle's backline that had to work hard, with Beltrame and Bailey maintaining the deadlock. Middleby kept firing shots, but still the Lakers showed no signs of leaks in front of goal. United skipper Matthew Bingley used his head to combine with Beltrame in keeping their own defence intact. But it was goals at the other end the home side was chasing, and new signing Alex Moriera soon got his first chance after his signing midweek. He learned quickly that Middleby is one to follow, but South Melbourne keeper Michael Petkovic showed why United's also keen to get him in the red and blue next season. The man who has the job did it for United, but Newcastle will have 4 strikers up for selection this week as they try and break a run of draws.
Let's not keep taking the negatives out of it. Let's take the positives and say we've got a draw against, I believe, a very good side tonight.
A packed Cessnock Sports Ground welcomed home 2 of their favourite sons in Andrew Johns and Bill Peden. The Locks soon gave them more to cheer about on the end of some great work from Matt Gidley and Tamana Tahu. Penrith looked like they were in for a tough night when Newcastle ran in a second in good time with Danny Medeiros finishing. The Panthers, though, were quick to claw back with their first points. Matt Parsons scored some of his own, while Tahu and Gidley's double act saw Newcastle in again. John Morris touched down for one as well, but if that looked easy, the Panthers got away with some soft tries themselves. When winger Luke Lewis landed his third, Penrith drew level. Fullback Reece Wesser soon took them into the lead. The Cessnock duo combined as Johns found room for Peden to score a double, while Wesser had the same idea as last year's Wooden Spooners led the Premiers again. Johns got back in on the act, this time sending Steve Simpson over to draw level. Billy Peden had the chance to win it, but the post made sure it ended 32-all. The biggest state junior carnival in memory, but still no one could beat Manly speedster Charlotte van Veenendaal, who relayed team may have been beaten, but she collected a record 12th gold today. It was on the board that Queenscliff's Matt Poole showed his stuff. Coming from near last, he joined the leaders on the wave home before racing towards his second gold for the day. Central Coast Club McMaster's Beach put in some solid performances, while efforts like this from Michael Booth did the home club proud. Small in stature, he was big on heart, easily winning the 11 years Ironman for Belmont Swansea. From the sand to skiffs, and it was a sea of sails on Lake Macquarie, but it was the 16-foot skiffs that everyone had their eye on in the Australian Sprint Championships. National champions in the long course division, Belmont's own Skilled Engineering was one of the front runners in the decider, but Manly's Fluid Building edged them out by just 0.4 in the best of 3 heat final.
Other than confirmation from his office, Richard Face left it to colleagues like Small Business Minister Sandra Norrie to speak publicly about his future. The Hunter's only state government minister was to have welcomed Ms Norrie to the Swansea function. However, fellow Lake MPs Jeff Hunter and Milton Orkopoulos were left to deputise with Mr Face called to Sydney at short notice. News of the impending departure has rocked local Labor ranks.
Well, it's very sad news, I think, for both myself and all the other members in the Hunter. We certainly look up to Richard. He's made a great contribution over the 30 years that he's been in State Parliament.
As to who could be Labor's candidate for Charlestown, so far only Lake Macquarie councillor Matthew Morris, son of former Shortland MP Peter Morris, has indicated an interest.
I'll be talking to some key people within the party over the next couple of weeks, but certainly I'm giving it some serious consideration.
One who won't be throwing his hat in the ring is former Newcastle police officer Mark Burgess. Mr Burgess had been touted as a possible contender to replace Mr Face. Mr Burgess today confirmed he'll be pursuing his police union career rather than political aspirations. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The 100th year of the Newcastle show should have been the biggest and best yet, but it proved to be one of the worst after a rival event captured Hunter crowds and their money. Estimates from the organisers suggest the rival Hunter Valley Super Show attracted around 130,000 people over the 3 days, compared with 60,000 at Broadmeadow. Takings topped $3 million at the Lake event, the figures significantly down in Newcastle.
Like our estimates are probably in the vicinity of 25, perhaps 30%.
So they came out in their droves, they supported us, they had a good time. We're professionals at what we do, we manage the area well, we put on a lot of entertainment for them, and they came out and they enjoyed themselves, and at the end of the day that's all that really matters.
While the fun of the fair put smiles on the faces of showgoers, the behind-the-scenes showdown is only just hotting up amid allegations that sideshow and showbag operators linked with the Newcastle show were threatened.
The word has been out for a long period of time that if you go to Newcastle, beware. And in fact, people here have walked away saying, well, protect your arse now, and that's the prevailing thought.
Well, if the police are involved, that's a matter for the police, and we'll address all those issues when they come along, but I'm not at liberty to talk about unfounded situations.
At this stage, both events are planned to run next year. Paul Lobb, NBN News. This old metal fence doesn't look like much, but it's caused a bitter rift in a neighbourly friendship of more than 20 years. With the fence on its last legs, Paul can't agree with his neighbour Tom on the height and colour of the new fence. It's a fight being repeated daily in hundreds of backyards throughout northern New South Wales.
We've had situations where people have been family friends for 30 years. A few misunderstandings, a few misinterpretations caused by various times of stress in their life, and they're suddenly feuding and threatening violence, hurting each other's careers. They can be very serious.
While neither Paul or Tom would speak to us today, their neighbours are well aware of the dispute.
It's a little bit ridiculous. It should have been settled without this, but one party just didn't want to talk to the other.
Tom and Paul were told by the magistrate in Newcastle Local Court that it's not a matter for the courts to settle, and ordered that they should both pay their share and get on with it.
Often there are other things involved. The fence is sometimes the issue, but more often than not there are other things, there are underlying causes, and the fence is the trigger for something deeper or something more complex, something with a bit more emotion involved into it.
Land and Water Conservation Minister John Aquilina has called for comment on the water sharing plan for the Tomago, Tomaree and Stockton groundwater source. The document discusses a 10-year plan for current and future use of the resource by the Hunter Water Corporation and licensed groundwater users. Meantime, the minister's also launched a report on salinity in the Hunter region. The information will be used to reduce salt levels being recorded in inland waterways.
Graham Arnold wants to make one thing clear from the start. He's not here to interfere. In fact, if it wasn't to help out a mate, he wouldn't be at Newcastle at all. That and United's owner offered him a role.
Con suggested it. It's his suggestion that because the Socceroo program's quiet at the moment, that asked me what I was doing in my spare time, and I've got plenty of it at the moment.
Basically, his role with the club is designed to take the pressure off Ian Crook. The rookie coach has taken Newcastle from second last to within reach of an historic playoff berth and maybe even a top 2 finish. Arnold's first job, to get the strikers back doing what they do best, scoring goals.
You know, I just felt that I've watched them the last 2 weeks and I feel that they're playing too wide apart. They're not helping each other. Just trying to get them closer together so they can play off each other.
The side to play Marconi is named tomorrow, but it's likely the striker combination won't be finalised until later in the week.
Under a perfect blue sky, all the fashions were at Broadmeadow for Newmarket Day. And while recent controversies may have made business a little slow for bookie Robbie Waterhouse, there was still plenty of cash changing hands. On the track, a full card of racing saw plenty of spirited contests, with Port Macquarie's Paul Graham and Serpentine beating champion jockeys Chris Muntz and Alan Robinson in race 3. But all eyes today were on the feature event.
It's important because a lot of the trainers, particularly some of the big stables in Sydney, Hawkes and Waterhouse, use it as a stepping stone to the Doncaster Handicap, $1 million plus race at Randwick on Easter Saturday.
In a photo finish, Hey Pronto came out on top ahead of Lord Essex and Let's Compromise. The trifecta, $595.10. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Demolition is well underway on the BHP Newcastle Steelworks site, but just what will Nova Castrians get from the deal between the state government and BHP Billiton for the sale and remediation of the Port Waratah and Kooragang sites remains a burning question. Newcastle councillor Yvonne Piddington believes the public has a right to know.
It's the public's right to be able to see the extent of the pollution over on these sites, not only on the main BHP site, but also on Kooragang Island, which is not particularly open to the public.
Also interested to learn the finer details is Hunter Green's representative John Sutton. He's repeatedly asked for government documents on assessment of the work.
And in the light of their constant refusal to do so, you have to start wondering whether they've done the job inadequately or whether they're trying to cover something up.
The government today stood by figures for the purchase and clean-up released by the Premier when the deal was announced last November. A spokesman for Mr Carr said the government had the Environment Protection Authority and the Tees Company check BHP's estimate for site remediation. The net cost to the steel giant for the clean-up is put at $74.6 million. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The new marksmanship training range was put to the test today, first by Major General Frank Roberts. Then it was time for some of Australia's best shooters to take aim. The new system, designed in Albury, is now being used by armies across the world, including the US Navy SEALs. It provides instant feedback on each soldier's shooting skills.
Most importantly, we've put upgrades in the computer side so we can help assess and coach soldiers through their small arms firing.
Each time a soldier fires a round, a sonic boom records exactly where it hits the target. The information is then recorded onto a master computer. The equipment provides even the most experienced snipers with better training before they take to the battlefield.
What we've got here is different ranges, different target groups with single, double, triple for machine guns, and we've also got capability for night firing.
The $1.2 million upgrade at Singleton is just one of 4 at Defence Force bases across Australia.
Winning by 3 would mean a bonus NSL point for United, but first things first.
Marconi, very capable team of doing well, and they're fighting for the top 6 as well, so it won't be an easy game for us, but we've just got to take some of our chances. You know, we've played good football the last few weeks, just haven't taken our chances. So
it could be assumed playing a former coach's team would be good reason for victory. But with the playoffs just weeks away, Middleby says United has other incentives.
Got a few strikers back at the moment, and you know, everyone's vying for those 2 positions that we've got. So you know, hopefully that will G a few of them up, and we'll score a few goals.
And if past performances are repeated tomorrow night, opportunities will be available.
Statistics show at the moment that we've created more chances than Perth Glory. So you know, that's not a problem. I don't think it's putting the ball in the net. I think it's a bit of composure, and hopefully we'll have it tomorrow night.
With that in mind, it's just a matter of time before a team bears the brunt of United's attack.
You know, we're capable of punishing teams, and we haven't really done it this year. And hopefully, you know, we'll show our home supporters in the last couple of games that we can punish teams.
Victory has never smelt so sweet. Ever since they heard the news the dump had been dumped, these residents can't stop smiling.
It's nice that it's happened. It is a little bit of a surprise, but we've worked very hard for the decision.
It's a wonderful feeling for the whole community here.
Many thought their cause was lost after Singleton Shire Council voted to support the proposal, but it was up to the state government to have the final say.
I think the council got it wrong, mostly on the fact that we need to look more broadly at the justifiable demand.
The Minister for Planning was today thanked by some of the town's residents. Even Singleton Shire councillors admit the state government has better represented the town.
From our youngest to our oldest citizens, we roared, and the Minister heard us and our own council didn't.
The quick decision by the state government also caught Singleton Mayor Daniel Galenia by surprise. But he says members of the community hijacked the campaign with scaremongering, diverting others from the real information. But residents say that simply wasn't the case.
But the community has said no loud and clear, and unfortunately he hasn't been listening.
Tees Services, who are behind the proposal, are still considering their options, but say they haven't ruled out challenging the decision. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
The process to find a replacement for Ian Burnett was originally thought to take until April, but it appears that could come much sooner. Of a field in excess of 50 applicants, it's believed a shortlist of around 3 candidates has been drawn up, with the board to hold further interviews before making its decision. While one board member expressed confidence the matter could be resolved by as early as the end of next week, Chairman Michael Hill didn't want to commit to a timeframe nor comment on any said shortlist. It's long been speculated the position will be filled by either a current staff member or even a member of the board. Meanwhile, the club continues its tradition of taking the game to the fans by holding its season launch on Sunday afternoon in the coalfields. In recent years, the club has opted for public launches at Spears Point, and this year they've headed for Drayton's Vineyard at Bacolban to formally introduce its team for this season. Designed as a family day, activities start at around 4:30. The talk all week was which strikers would start. Asala Massi got the coach's nod, but the Fijian was after net. Andy Roberts returned from a 1-week suspension, Joel Griffiths from 2. The pair combined to make up for lost time. A great return for Griffiths, while Massi laid on the next one. Midfielder Peter Sekena sneaking home his first for the season. Newcastle 2-0 up. Marconi went one man down after referee Peter Green saw red over this Chad Gibson tackle. If that was tough to take when a Joey Sharippa challenge led only to a caution, the Stallions were seething. Things eventually rolled Marconi's way with Royce Brownlee halving the home side's lead. A 10-man Marconi made every effort in the second half, but a horrible break for youngster Sasho Trusevski only added to their woes. Off the bench, Alex Moriera was full of life. But the sealer came from a scorching Robbie Middleby rocket. The goal great, the result even better, with Newcastle's first ever finals berth all but guaranteed. As the swell picked up, some on skis looked more like sitting ducks. It was no picnic in the surf boats either. Mona Vale got a visit when Wanda's crew did just that on the run home. Nathan Smith knows all about trouble at these championships. Disqualified after finishing second in the Ironman final last year, he won his semi today. So too Jeremy Cotter, he's searching for successive titles. Bulli have an incredible 5 competitors out to beat him, including Wesberg, Langhorne and Drew Cancross, all qualifying. But at home, Joshua Blair is going to be tough to beat, and his form today proved it. Second in the semis, he picked up silver in the surf swim behind Olympian Matt Allen. A massive field for the Open Women's Surf Swim final. Australian team member Gabby Moses falling at the last hurdle, allowing Kate McClellan the gold. What a weekend for Crystal Smith. The Cronulla clubby already had 3 state titles before the Open Women's Board final. She easily took gold in that as well. Just metres up the beach, big brother Nathan was doing it just as easily in the men's board, cruising home for a family double. In a real change of pace on the beach, Swansea Belmont's Drew Langford took the under-19 sprint but couldn't catch national champion and Kilcare speedster Steve Munnery in the Open. Form shows Wombrel's Christy Cameron doesn't need luck, but it still helped in the final of the Open ski. As competitors lost it before the line, the teenager had a clear run to it. Teammate Kate McNamara kept her honest in the Iron Women final. On the run home, though, she was all alone to be the first ever female to win back-to-back crowns. In the Iron Man, no surprises to see Nathan Smith up front with a host of bulleye clubbies. But it was a shock to see defending champion Jeremy Cotter and Josh Blair way back in the pack. Smith led all the way, but an incredible swim leg somehow had Cotter back in it. But after the pain of last year, the 21-year-old wasn't to be denied this time around. Cotter gained some revenge, anchoring Queenscliff home in what was an equally amazing finish in the Taplin Relay. Cronulla, though, overall champions for the 5th straight year. Mathematically, United is not a definite playoff contender, but after Friday's 3-1 win, it's hard to see how they could miss from here.
I'd be stunned if 37 points wasn't enough to get you there, yeah.
With that in mind, it might be time for some of United's older brigade to have a breather, but try telling them that.
Mate, I don't like to miss any match and, I like to play every match if I can.
But the time may be right for 2 others to have a spell. Milan Blagojevic has been playing in pain for weeks, while the skipper, Matthew Bingley, has been troubled for some months with groin problems.
Whether we do it for this game or a little bit for the next 2 games, we'll sort of make some decisions over this week.
It might take Roberts a bit longer to realise he's heading to the playoffs for the first time since debuting back in 1991.
It's a realisation of a dream come true, personally, but for the team and for Newcastle Soccer, it's fantastic.
With that in mind, the club wants to finalise ongoing player negotiations and have given the 5 remaining players that have been offered deals for next season by the close of business Friday to make their decision.
National Party Whip and member for Coffs Harbour, Andrew Fraser, wasn't mincing words today when asked about Mr Oakeshott.
I think he's a very shallow person to do what he's done in the manner in which he's done by not advising his leader, his parliamentary colleagues.
Mr Fraser also questioned Mr Oakeshott's loyalty and commitment to his electorate.
These are branches that put in $300,000 for a by-election, worked extremely hard to get him re-elected, and they're asking him to work a bit harder on a local level.
But Oakeshott is sticking to his guns, claiming that he has been obstructed by the National Party.
I have been trying to get issues locally and internally on the agenda and resolved, and been frustrated by that. And that's where I think in the decision I had to make last weekend in regards to the next 4 years, shake hands with the National Party and we're going our own ways.
It seems the two former colleagues can't agree on anything.
He has never raised those issues within the party room. So I think that's an excuse.
Mr Oakeshott had the last say, pointing his critics to party leader George Soros, who has described him as a hard-working parliamentarian who had the support of the electorate. He's also scotched rumours that he might contest the next election with another major party.
No, there's not. I am running as an independent. I am standing at the next election as an independent.
Louisa Rubo, NBN News.
While the Knights have shown off a few new faces for the coming season, a familiar one is set to return for the season opener. Without a trial match under his belt and the effects of groin surgery still fresh, Adam McDougall was named to play but is yet to be past fit.
Get an MRI scan on Wednesday and see Dr Neil Halpin, who's the specialist who obviously operated on the groins, and just see how I go from there. Obviously I'll make a decision later in the week.
The team to start the season is much the same as the one which took the premiership last year. Ben Kennedy's return, though, will be from the bench, and he's no certainty either.
We don't expect too much from him early on.
Filling his starting boots, back rower Daniel Abraham.
If I can go out there on the weekend and do sort of half the job BK can, I'll be happy with my form.
The Knights shrugged off the fact they've lost their last two season-opening games against the Eagles, but the coach is well aware there are some who believe the Knights still have to earn their Premier's tag.
There seems to be some concern that we were actually good enough to win it last year in amongst those teams, and I guess that's the attitude that Sydney often take towards Newcastle.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Lakes United continued its great run in Country Rugby League's pre-season championship at the weekend, beating Central Coast side Erina 22-10 in their third round encounter. There are only 9 teams left in the Country Rugby League Challenge Cup, with Lakes to now face Burleigh Heads this weekend. The only trouble is where to play the match, with Carl Oval unavailable. Newcastle hosted the opening round of the new Wheelchair Rugby State League at the weekend, and the action was enough to make you want to hold on to your seat. Unlike the other rugby code, the only real injuries in this game aren't too serious. 4 teams are in the league, including Newcastle, but Port Macquarie showed they'll be the team to beat, taking the opening round with Canberra next best. They beat Sydney 34-19 in their game. To mountain bikes, and Newcastle's Emma McNaughton got off to a great start in the State Downhill Series at the weekend on Mount Sugarloaf. She took out the expert women's division, while Brad Kelly from the Central Coast was too strong in the expert men. In Lake Macquarie District Lawn Bowls, Marks Point took on Swansea for the ladies' triples crown, but couldn't topple the LV Low skipper trio, going down 22 shots to 11. In Premier League Lawn Bowls, Windale Gateshead have slipped out of the top 4 for the first time this season, while Maitland City's 2 wins at the weekend see them mid-table.
Callirpa weed is thriving in the lake and threatening to smother everything in its path. Fisheries officers now believe salt in high concentrations is the weed's mortal enemy. Today, the crane vessel Alkira towed 20 tonnes of pool salt to a Callirpa-infested site off Pulborough Island. Guided by a diver, the salt was dumped on the weed.
The idea is that you dump the salt and it forms a layer over the top of the Callirpa, and gives it a very sharp osmotic pulse, which kills the seaweed but doesn't affect other things.
A trial last November that saw old rubber conveyor belts placed over the weed has had mixed results.
It definitely kills the seaweed, but unfortunately it looks like it kills the seagrass as well and turns the sediment black. So, there might be some unwelcome environmental effects there that we'd rather avoid if we can.
Locals say more needs to be done to save the lake from total infestation.
And if we don't get rid of this now, it may be a few $100,000 now to get rid of it in the southern end of the lake, but you'd lose the whole plot if in fact you finish up in the top end of the lake. So I think they should be putting in all the funding necessary as quick as possible.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Ken Wright arrived at Dutchies Beach this morning to find his beloved boat gone.
I just couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, somebody's knocked my boat off already.
His houseboat, along with 10 other cruisers and a yacht, had their mooring lines cut in the early hours of this morning, some drifting several kilometres.
Apart from the damage to the boats, which would cost an awful lot of, could cost the owners an awful lot of money, or insurance companies a lot of money, you got the navigational hazard as well of boats just adrift out there. And of course, given the right circumstances, there could be explosions and vessels up in flames.
Thankfully, Coast Guard and Coastal Patrol volunteers were able to retrieve all 12 vessels, worth a combined $1.5 million.
We had a flood tide, which meant that the current was taking the vessels further inland as well, so that was also in our favour. If it had been the other way round, the vessels possibly would have been on rocks earlier, and they may have even drifted out to sea.
Water police say it's most likely the work of bored troublemakers, but some speculate it could be protesters.
Most of the boats that we pulled in were game fishing boats. Whether they've got something against the game fishing, I don't know.
A major game fishing tournament was held recently at Nelson Bay.
It's pretty hard to keep things quiet in Newcastle, but Energy Australia Stadium's facelift has been the best kept secret in town. Andrew and Samuel John screened the first applicant this afternoon, and if initial discussions are anything to go by, he may already have the thumbs up.
Yeah, I was just having a word to him and said there's $40 million to build a stadium. He reckons he can knock it up within a year. So, if people are out there, especially the politicians, that you can see we're serious about it. We've got some good tradesmen here, so be a good start to let Bob build the stadium.
But Bob's got a bit more work to do to win Samuel's approval.
I told him that if he has to preschool tomorrow and tells all the kids he met Bob the Builder, it's a big curve for him. But it's a couple of hours past his bedtime. He's a bit tired.
Talks are set to continue later in the year.
Apparently he's here in July, so I'm sure that Samuel will be out and probably myself will be out the front.
Meantime, Michael Hagan has named the side that will take to the field against the Northern Eagles at North Power Stadium this Saturday. Returning from injury, Ben Kennedy will start from the bench in what's expected to be a hard-fought match.
The Eagles seem to lift against us, and they've probably got no real pressure on them this year because they've had to rebuild a little bit, so probably more pressures on us than them. But I think our players look forward to playing here. It's a great ground, a great atmosphere, and we hope there's plenty of Nova Castrians come down the highway to support us.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
It was the bombing of Darwin in 1942 that led to the formation of the 76 and 77 squadrons a month later. 60 years to the day, and proud Air Force personnel who make up the modern-day 77 Squadron today commemorated that anniversary. Family and friends turned out at RAF Base Williamtown for a defence parade full of pomp and ceremony. The Chief of the Air Force, Air Marshal Houston, and the first ever commanding officer of the 77 Squadron, Wing Commander Dick Creswell, today inspected the parade.
Yeah, bloody emotional. Well, 60 years is a long time.
The decorated war hero shot down enemy bombers in Darwin and Korea. And in more recent times, the 77th Squadron was the country's first Air Force unit to be deployed to the International Coalition's war on terrorism. 80 personnel were involved in operations off an island in the Indian Ocean for 3 months. Hornet pilot Darren Irvine was one of those who recently returned.
It was a fairly mind-blowing experience, I suppose, in that something that happens overseas that affects us so directly, and then we're called upon to take part in, sort of the response to that.
Today was a chance for young and old to swap a few stories and be in awe of a display of the Hornet's capabilities.
In memory of the man who was an icon in the Australian 10-pin bowling community, the $10,000 up for grabs has also drawn some of the country's best. Newcastle's own World Cup champions in Anne-Marie Putney and Amanda Bradley will figure well in the hunt for the crown, while the country's #1 male bowler looked right on target as well. Andrew Frawley will be hard to stop in the race for the men's title. The 60-odd who started today will be whittled down to a 16-person final, with the last one standing taking the Mr Mac trophy. From smashing 10 pins to each other, and the Black Diamond Australian rules competition pre-season continued, with a host of games played in Newcastle and on the Central Coast. The finals are next week.
Newcastle's Hunter Street Mall was due to have weekend markets from April to encourage people back into the city. But Newcastle Council has vehicle access issues to resolve before the markets open. Concerns include emergency vehicles getting into narrow streets close to the mall and freedom of movement for business and residents. Despite the hold-up, Business Chamber President Paul Murphy wants the markets to start as soon as possible.
Obviously dates and expectations haven't been met, so I think it wholly and solely rests with Council now to come up with some timelines to say this is when we expect it to happen and the community needs to know.
Council says work on the markets continues, but it won't set a new start date.
It is moving ahead and hopefully it will be something that comes to fruition fairly soon.
Meanwhile, plans to revitalise retail trading in Newcastle continue to gather momentum. A call by Councillor Gaudry for Friday night trading has now been put to business and will be given further consideration.
I think there is an open-mindedness to look at that concept of Friday night shopping.
However, Mr Murphy says he isn't being rushed by business colleagues eager to open for the existing crowd of Friday night window shoppers,
who were saying that Friday night shopping in our area is not needed, not required, and unless we have a total change in the focus of the City of Newcastle, it's not going to happen.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The season doesn't kick off until April 6, but the Lake Macquarie Club can't wait. It will mark its return to top-grade rugby after some rebuilding years in second division.
They're in an area that we consider a growth area of Newcastle, and as part of our strategic plan we want to put a team in first division from the western side of Lake Macquarie.
But the club doesn't want to make it so inviting for visiting clubs.
Well, it's been known as Disneyland over the years, and yeah, we certainly hope that that reputation will stay. Yeah, it mightn't be with a House of Pain, but yeah, Disneyland will do.
The NRU has several things on the agenda, namely the right to host some big representative fixtures, including the Australian Shield, while they're lobbying to host a game of the 2003 World Cup.
Very early days. We're just waiting for the criteria.
For some Hunter clubs, though, the season is already busy enough. Maitland will celebrate its 125th year this season and has big things planned. The first round of the competition kicks off on April 6 and will feature a replay of last year's grand final between the Wanderers and Eastern Districts.
I'd like to play, and if they decide to keep me off, well then, the rest will probably do me good, but then again, I'd prefer to keep playing.
Yeah, probably. It looks like that's going to be the case. Missing this week, then so be it.
A real duffer, but
well,
anyway,
at least he's safe.
He's through safely now. 200 metre foot that he set up in Fukuoka, just from the Hunter Club in New South Wales. Graham in front, Thomas is going
hard. Meanwhile, Lisbeth Lenton powered home on a full stroke.
See here, lane one's not far away. Irving's going a fraction better. Irving's won it in 3.
A second last training session for the Knights this morning ahead of Saturday's clash with the Cowboys, and all eyes were on the team's star second rower. But in what was a pleasing sight for any Newcastle fan, Ben Kennedy made it through the entire session.
At this stage, it'll be a certainty to play, and I think looking forward to the game.
And he's not the only one, with the team having literally been around the world in the past few months.
We've been all over the place. If you look, we've been to the UK, we've been to Port Macquarie, we've been to Cessnock, and we've been to the Central Coast, so we've been gravitating a bit closer each time.
With ticket sales healthy and fine weather forecast, a big crowd is expected at Energy Australia Stadium, something which brings with it a mix of both support and pressure.
I think they look forward to that. I think that's something that's part of the reason, or part of the appeal of playing here, is that they know they get great support, and they look to put a good performance on when they do get here, so hopefully that'll be the case on Saturday.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Racquetball to relax, it's cricket scores the Knights have been racking up early this season. Happy with the results, the skipper knows the tougher times are ahead, with a trip to Auckland next up.
I watched the game yesterday, their forwards played unbelievable. Stacey Jones and PJ Marsh combining well, so it's going to be a real good test for us.
The match against New Zealand isn't until next Monday, giving Sean Rudder and Josh Perry more time to overcome respective injuries. Perry leaving a few Cowboys sore as well. The only thing the captain is crook about is making sure his side goes the distance.
We're still a bit scrappy. We've got to be more professional the way we play. We're taking the throttle off a bit towards the end, so it was just disappointing to let those last two tries in. It would have been nice to, maybe to keep them to 0.
While promising he didn't dye his hair black to hide any grey streaks, he didn't mind making light of an old argument that may have led to some a few weeks ago.
I think everyone realised it was sort of maybe blown out of proportion. It just poked a bit of fun at each other, and I thought it was not a bad touch.
Neither was this. A high-flying effort for Mark Hughes, who finished another Knights raid. Newcastle will need every attacking trick against the Warriors.
Battered and bruised, Cowboys manager Peter Parr suffered multiple fractures to his right eye socket and a broken jaw in the mob attack. He'd been at the Great Northern Hotel on Friday night and was walking back to his hotel around 1:30am when he encountered two girls being hassled by youth near Pacific Park. Peter asked him to cut it out.
He got very violent and very aggressive very quickly.
Police suspect that teenager may have led an ambush.
These people made some tribal call or some sort of a yell or chant, and with that a number of people emerged from all sorts of places. They came out of alleyways and from behind wheelie bins and whatever the case may be.
Cowboys media manager Tim Nugent, who was walking with Peter, was held back by gang members.
I was grabbed by a couple of them and had my shirt pulled over my head, and then I just remember copping some blows to the head. I believe I copped probably more than the initial couple that I felt, but the next thing I know I remember that the police were there. And
it's not clear if the teenage girls Peter was trying to help were innocent victims or used as bait. Police are asking that they step forward. The football manager, who grew up in Stockton, today received a letter from the mayor apologising on behalf of the people of Newcastle.
It's probably just a reflection on society, not on a reflection of Newcastle.
Newcastle should have 128 police, but only 90 are active. The rest off on long service, sick or maternity leave, on restricted duties or suspended.
You take into account that long-term sick leave, we still have sufficient policing numbers to meet what are called first response agreements. These are the minimum staffing levels required at any particular time to ensure that there is an appropriate service to the public.
31 new recruits arrive in the Hunter in May, but many argue it's not enough to stop escalating crime, highlighted by the bashing of football manager Peter Parr on Friday night. Another solution is to rent out off-duty officers to community groups or councils, similar to the user pays system for sporting events. Newcastle set to trial the Rent-A-Cop plan.
They would be employed in their capacity as a police officer, absolutely. They would have uniform, they would wear their guns and they'd carry their batons and their capsicum spray, and they would be doing nothing different.
I could see that they would be available in places like Newcastle Beach, where we find a lot of broken glass on Sunday mornings and Saturday mornings. They could be available in the mall, the Civic Park.
Police, like everybody else, deserve the right to work extra hours if they can for extra money and do it legitimately.
But the opposition claims the plan contravenes recommendations in the Woods Royal Commission, which stipulate that the primary role of police should be to protect all people and not pay particular attention to those who pay.
The abandoned aluminium fishing boat was located off Blacksmiths Beach near the entrance to Swansea Channel this afternoon. As the crew of the police launch Valiant took the 4-metre craft under tow, the 3 survivors and their rescuers were reliving the drama ashore.
Well, there's breakers coming over the top and the tide going out, and they sort of met and flipped us over and bang, we were in the water.
There was nothing skipper Cliff Egan and his crew could do but wait for help. 2 boats passed without sighting them. John Caldwell and his fishing mate Danny Plunkett were the next to pass by.
Then I said to the mate, Danny, have a look over there. I said, what's that? And he said, well, they're waving. He said, let's go back and have a look. So we turned around and had a look, and we seen the upturned boat with the 3 guys hanging off it.
It was hard to get the bodies on board. There's a lot of body weight and trying to drag them over, plus the boat's throwing you from side to side.
I was gone, yeah, a quarter of an hour more, and I was gone. And my mates, they probably would have hung on a little bit longer than I, but I was gone another quarter of an hour.
Relieved family members were keen to hear the details, but this is one fishing story they all could have done without. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Unleaded petrol prices in the Hunter averaged around the 89.9 cent a litre mark today, dropping a dramatic 5 cents in 2 days.
It's a bit of a joke, eh? Like, you know, we sort of fueled up and thinking it was going to be all come right up, and it's just gone, you know, and spewing. I reckon it's a rort.
Meantime, the NRMA's predictions that petrol prices could rise above $1 a litre have so far failed to materialise in the Hunter. After peaking at 95 cents on Wednesday, prices have gone down. Meantime, on the roads at traditional bottlenecks such as Karua and the F3 south of Gosford, traffic was slow but steady as thousands made their holiday pilgrimage. Wet conditions caused a string of minor accidents. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. Highway police were also out in force for day 1 of Operation Torres.
So far this year we are looking far better than last year. We have had 16 fatalities compared with 18 for the same period last year.
Motorists reminded to cut 10 kilometres off their speed in the wet, and that double demerit points will be deducted for traffic offences. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.